Good day. We are talking this week about Genesis 30 and 31. It's absolutely in the center of the overarching Jacob story. And in chapter 30, we see nothing but a lot of kids. The four wives are at it. Now, really, the two wives are at it, and Bilhah and Zilpah are just along for the ride. There's conflict and rivalry all over this family. We see kind of going back to Jacob and Esau. We go back to chapters 25, 24, and we see a lot of rivalry between two brothers. That rivalry climaxes in a crisis in Jacob's life, and he has to basically leave his home, his family, penniless, shirt on his back, has nothing to offer his potential new wife, where he's charged to go by mom and dad, Isaac and Rebekah. By the time he gets to Paddan Aram or Haran, he meets some shepherds. He has a first encounter with Rachel. We see love at first sight. Looks like things are going well, but then the reality catches up with him. He's got nothing to offer would-be bride. So he goes into labor. Literally, the word there means one who's indentured, which is like being a slave to Rachel's father, Laban. And he works for 7 years. And he thinks it's a great deal because he's so in love with her. The 7 years pass and Laban pulls a fast one, kind of a bait and switch. And instead of going into the bridal tent, which of course would have been late in the evening after much to drink, perceptions are skewed, it's dark, he finds himself making love with the sister of the woman he loves, Leah. Leah didn't complain about the arrangement. Laban didn't complain about the arrangement. But when Jacob woke up, he complained about the arrangement and said, what have you done to me? And Laban says, that's just the way we do things here. The older's got to be married before the younger. And now Jacob has to work for another 7 years to pay for a second wife, which he never bargained for. Good thing for Laban, he only had 1 week. Wait 1 week before he could be with Rachel, the woman he thought he was going to marry, the woman he was in love with. Well, this family has got some issues, clearly. And Jacob is he's learning perseverance. We looked last week at 4 lessons that Jacob had to learn. He had to learn to be faithful. He had to learn to be truthful. He had to learn to be grateful. And he had to learn with God, a healthy fear of God. And so over those 14 years, he's been learning that. And then by the time we get to this story in chapter 30, we're seeing the rest. Leah had 4 kids in chapter 29, and now the rest of them have children. But the rivalry now is between sisters. Earlier, it was Jacob and Esau. That was the rivalry. Now we have a rivalry between sisters because they're both trying to win the affection of their husband. Right? We just want you to know we don't recommend 2 wives and certainly not 4. This family's got troubles up to their eyelids. So Jacob, after the 14 years, once Rachel has finally had a child, Joseph, whose name means more or add, or the notion is his name means give me another son. This is not enough. Jacob now, because of cultural context, the culture says one must have, one's wife must have a male child before you can leave the compound of the broader family. Now, that's happened, and as soon as it does, in middle of chapter 30, Jacob's ready to go. Okay, let's get out of here. Only problem, He doesn't have any money to show for his 14 years. Now, he's got a lot of human collateral. He's got 4 wives, 11 boys, and 1 girl. Um, but he's got no resources to travel or to take care of them. So he's got to go back to the negotiating board with negotiating table with Laban and devise another plan. So they do so. And he's going to work for an undeclared time, taking care of Laban's sheep, but makes a deal with Laban. You don't have to give me anything, but I want to work for whatever I get. And what I want to do is I want to take the speckled and streaked and spotted lambs and the black lambs. I want to take those away. They're a minority anyhow, and they're not considered the purest of the flock. I'll take those. And then I'll tend your flock, and I'll tend to those as well. And you can come and check. And any time that you want to think about my wages, just that my wages would be streaked, speckled, spotted, black sheep. And when I got those, then at some point down the road, I'll take those as my wages and I'll go. And so off they go. Laban, meanwhile, takes a collection of spotted, streaked, black sheep, and he takes them 3 days' journey away and gives them to his sons. It leads us to believe that Jacob didn't realize that Laban was kind of, siphoning off, again, a move of deception, siphoning off much of the sheep for his own good, keeping them from Jacob. Jacob then has his own little scheme and plan, and he begins to find some sort of plant mixtured with the breeding season, with the sheep, and he finds a way that if he can connect kind of the raw bark of several different trees, he can actually manipulate the reproduction of more spotted, speckled, and black sheep. And so he kind of does his own little scheme, and in so doing, he increases his flock and decreases Laban's flock. He does this scheme with the flock that are the strongest. When a billy goat, when a male sheep comes in, he takes the strong ones and he does this manipulation. So he's breeding stronger sheep and giving Laban weaker sheep. And 6 years pass. And after that 6 years passes, he's a wealthy man. He not only has a much larger flock than Laban does, but he's also got camels and male and female servants. I mean, he has built quite a business. And Laban's sons, who this is kind of the first mention of these boys. We find out probably these boys were born in that 14 years maybe, where he'd been working. These are young men, and they are protective over their father, and they feel like that, right? It's pretty clear to them, whatever Jacob has is increasing, and their father's flock is decreasing. And so they're kind of speaking ill against him. Laban turns against him as well, and Jacob kind of recognizes, hey, well, this isn't, he's not looking at me too good. What I see and hear here is, it's not for us. And so he decides, okay, and with the help of God reveals himself and says, I think it's time for you to go back to Canaan. And so Jacob makes his plan, calls the wives together, calls Leah, calls Rachel, and converses with them and says, hey, what do you think we should do, ladies? They're like, hey, our father has basically abandoned us. He sold us, and now he's abandoned us. We have nothing in inheritance from him, so do as God has told you to do. And off they go. They get a 3-day head start, and then Laban's right after them, pursuing them, and he is fit to be tied. When he finally catches him after 9 days and 350 miles, this is quite a pursuit. Can you imagine how much angrier you would become after every mile chasing somebody? And you and I, we immediately think of, driving across the Sahara Desert or driving across the Mojave Desert. These guys were on camels. Can you think of how ticked off Laban would have been by the time he finally got there? He gets there, and was apprehending Jacob, and there's a pretty much a big conflict going on. One of the things that Laban is very irritated about is not only that Jacob left in the dead of night under secrecy, no opportunity to say goodbye, but somebody stole Laban's household gods, and that's a big deal. These gods are the ones that through divination helped him to kind of recognize that, wow, I'm getting blessed by this Jacob guy. I'm going to keep him around and make more money. So now Laban is furious and he lays into Jacob. And Jacob says, hey, if somebody in my clan stole your gods, it'll be death to them right now. He doesn't realize the one who stole the gods was his wife, Rachel. Yeah, his favorite spouse. Laban searches, looks all over, looks in Leah's tent, looks in Bilhah and Zilpah's tent, looks in Rachel's tent. And Rachel says, I'm sorry, I can't get up. I'm on my period. Meanwhile, she's sitting on her camel saddle that has a container for hauling things, and the gods are in that saddle. She's sitting on them. I can't get up. I've got my period, my menstrual cycle. Laban looks all over. Can't find any of these gods. Goes out, and now Jacob gets his turn. Now he lays into Laban. I've done this and I've done that, and you've done this and you've done that. I mean, just gives him the riot act. Tells him how poorly he's been treated, what a terrible father-in-law he's been, and he deserves to be free. Then Laban tears right back into him. These sheep are mine. These daughters are mine. Everything you see is mine. But what can I do? You're 350 miles from my place, and you don't want to come back, and I'm not sure if I want you back. And so let's make a covenant. So they make a covenant. And after that covenant, they decide to go their separate ways, never to cross the DMZ zone again, never to cross this pillar and these rocks, this mound, this cairn of rocks that declare, you stay there so you'll do no harm for me. I'll stay here so I do no harm to you. And they part their ways, and chapter 31 ends. This week, we're going to look at that, and we're going to talk about this dysfunctional family. And we're going to talk about how to break free when you are just done being controlled. God bless. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to the story, and I'll see you tomorrow. God bless.